Welcome back to Aspect of the Day. Today's aspect is Mars in a square with Midheaven and the Nadir, or the IC. So obviously the IC and the Midheaven are on an axis that doesn't break. When you have an aspect to one of them, you have the converse aspect to the other. But when we're talking about a square, we're talking about a 90-degree relationship between two planets or points. And so when you have a square to one point on an axis, you also have a square to the other. And that planet that's in square to that axis acts as the apex of a T-square, which is when there's an opposition tied together by a square. There's a planet that has a square aspect to both of them, right? So Mars is the planet in double square to the MC-IC axis in this case. Now, this is perhaps a more fortunate square than most that would occur to a single point or a single planet in the birth chart, because in a T-square, there is an inherent balance. And at least you know where the point of focus needs to be for that entire triangle to function properly. And that is the planet, which is the apex of the T-square. So in this case, Mars is the planet that we need to focus on and develop and manage so that the Midheaven and the IC work well together. There's always an inherent balance between those 2 points. Again, they're on an axis, kind of like the nodes, kind of like the ascendant and the descendant. But the areas of home and lineage, which is the IC, and then the MC things, your public image, and how you are when you're performing, when you're at work, when you're embodying things of higher purpose. That's why the MC is at the highest point in the sky, is because it's about higher purpose and how it is that you approach those things. Having Mars in a square with both of those allows work itself, that masculine energy within ourselves that's kind of primal, that wants to be assertive and take action. When we get a hold of that thing, then our relationships to our lineage and our outward public-facing self can truly be developed. So let's see what the Astrologer's Handbook has to say about this aspect, and then I'll give a few more thoughts of my own. This square indicates that the natives may be unable to get along with their parents, family, landlords, immediate superiors, or employers, right? Those are all people who are directly connected to those 2 points that we're talking about. Both career and domestic affairs, MC-IC, are subject to strife. There is a tendency to transfer to the job the conflicts that result from quarrels at home and vice versa, right? Not being able to leave your home shit at home and your work shit at work. Thus, problems in the profession or in the home life, or both, are likely to aggravate the other spheres of activity, right? They negatively impact each other. There's not a proper balance there because you don't have your Mars in a mature state. The natives must learn to use their heads more than their feelings. There is also an inclination to get into trouble with the state and with its legally constituted authorities. Sometimes the natives are unwillingly involved in military affairs. For example, they may be drafted. Right, because getting drafted is going to force onto you a degree of responsibility and structure and order that maybe Mars on its own is lacking. And there's this cosmic indication that maybe if you do get your Mars straight and in order and mature it, that you're less likely to be drafted in those times. Not saying there's a causal relationship there, but that the universe tends to give you what you need at any given time. And if you're already doing the work on your Mars, especially in the case of having it be squared to other crucial points like this, that you know how to direct your Martian energy. And you know which boundaries are necessary for you to set in order for the planets who are in squares with each other to focus and be contained in the ways that they need to so that they can function properly. That's the lesson with any square, is that a healthy boundary needs to be set between those 2 points or planets so that they can function independently and not negatively impact each other, that those containers don't spill over into each other unnecessarily, causing strife. Remember what a square is. It's a very combative, not in an oppositional way where perfect balance needs to be found between them, but rather in more of a butting of heads kind of way. A T-boning effect happens. Look, perpendicular points, 90-degree angles right here. Look at a wheel chart, an astrological wheel chart. When you have 2 squared planets or points, imagine that they're heading toward the center of the chart. That center is you. And if one of them does not yield to the other, that is, set some kind of boundary between them, and you can do that yourself, set up a little 4-way stop with lights or stop signs, so that one of them has to stop and yield to the other at any given point. And that they don't T-bone each other in the middle of that intersection and keep fighting to the death. Because that's what's going to happen in a square between 2 planets that are in a square that you haven't managed yet and set boundaries for within yourself. That's what a square is about, setting boundaries between those 2 parts of yourself that the squared planets represent. If you don't do that, they're constantly going to be butting heads, T-boning each other, getting in internal quarrels within you. Okay, that's the kind of tension that a square produces. Being that Mars is so crucial to your well-being, your health, your physical expression, your work, right? How you manage and provide for the IC things, the things at home, and then the work itself that you do, which is very important to the MC. The midheaven needs a healthy Mars, even if that means setting boundaries between them. And that's what you have to do in the case of a square. All right? Think of the MC being the cusp of the 10th house, or in or around the 10th house, depending on which house system you use. I'm not here to debate that today. But that being represented traditionally by Capricorn. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It has its fullest, most robust and productive expression in the sign of Capricorn. So in a sense, and Mars, okay, is ruled by Aries. Aries is also a cardinal sign like Capricorn. So it's in kind of a natural square with Capricorn. But we have all the parts of the chart in some condition or another at any given time, even if there aren't planets there, for good reason. And that's so they can all be developed, so they can serve one another rather than butt heads with one another. Squares make it difficult for us to see that. But there is this natural tendency for Mars, in its pure Aries expression, to butt heads with midheaven, your outward public facing self that's important for your career and your fulfillment in life, which is kind of a Capricorn cardinal energy. So, what is inherent to success in the realm of work and career and fulfillment and all of these themes that this axis, this conflict has in common. That is moderation, being able to set boundaries, to say no. These are healthy masculine traits that you don't want to overdo. But you say no to the things that are not conducive to the well-being of your Mars and to your midheaven. And your IC, your home, will benefit to that. As well will both of those other 2 points. So even if you don't have this square in your birth chart, this is the lesson. Being able to say no, set healthy boundaries. There's a Saturnian essence to this, isn't there? To MC things, to Capricorn things. Therefore, to Mars things, to work things. And your home life is only going to be as healthy and stable as you are healthy and stable in your dealings with the world and with work and with those mechanisms that you use to provide for the grounding in your life, which is the IC. See how this is all working together? All right, so that's my take on Mars square to the midheaven Nadir axis. Hope it makes sense and that it's helpful. See you in the next one. Cheers.